Gene Deal has dropped another bombshell claiming Netflix buried explosive stories from 50 Cent's Diddy documentary. He says some revelations were too serious and too dangerous for the public. And now Gene insists he knows exactly why those details were deliberately kept out entirely hidden.
What we was bringing to the table, who was going to tell a story, how they was going to tell a story. You know, I didn't know exactly what they were going to say, but I knew Tim grew up with Puff, so he can get the childhood thing. So I'm going and telling him the whole angle in which I would like for this to go. You know what I'm saying? What we was bringing to the table. It fell through because the lady was telling me what somebody else didn't give me or what somebody else didn't pay me, and she was being disrespectful.
What Gene Deal brought to the table fell apart after a disrespectful dispute over money and credit. When 50 Cent sold his Diddy documentary to Netflix for millions, many expected Gene Deal to appear prominently. He was not just an insider, but Diddy's personal bodyguard during the height of the bad boy era. Gene witnessed everything, from East Coast and West Coast tensions to the night Tupac was shot and the night Biggie was killed. If anyone carried real first-hand stories, it was him. Yet, when the documentary premiered, Gene was completely absent. No interviews, no footage, no presence at all, would immediately raise serious questions. At the same time, Netflix released footage showing Diddy's private moments before his arrest, including conversations and behind-the-scenes access. The series drew massive attention and legal threats. According to Gene, what viewers saw barely scratched the truth.
Pictures of different people that was no longer, but they was instrumental in the Bad Boy. They couldn't even tell the real Bad Boy story, how Puff and them got their money, got started and stayed in the game before Clyde Davis. You understand what I'm saying? Because they didn't have the pictures, they didn't have the person to deliver the story. You know what I'm saying? Bad Boy got their start with Corey Jacobs. Corey Jacobs, the dude you see next to Puff before he went to jail the whole 9 yards. Corey Jacobs went to jail for drug distribution and transporting narcotics, and he got 9, 16 to life sentences. You know what I'm saying? So he was pardoned by Obama. His money and Wolf money is the money that started Bad Boy. You know what I'm saying? To keep Big, you know, when he let Big go, when Andre Harrell let Big them go, and Craig Mackman, Puff had to get money to keep them there. You understand what I'm saying? Before he can go make the deal with Clyde Davis. So what he do? He take their money to piece Big them off for some money before he makes his deal. You understand what I'm saying? So they couldn't even tell that story. That's a good story.
Gene explained why he was not part of the documentary. He initially worked with a team who wanted his footage, photos, and first-hand stories. That changed after speaking with director Alex Stapleton. Gene says she told him 50 Cent did not control the money or the final edit. When he heard their offer to use his material, he felt disrespected. He claims he had footage, evidence, and stories no one else possessed. To him, they offered pocket change for million-dollar information, so he walked away.
You understand? Because I was talking to the producers, and before I talked to the executive director, and the producers knew, I was telling them what I was bringing to the table, because I was trying to get a deal for me, Kirk, and Tim all together, like a package deal. I wanted to try to get like $50,000 for each one of us. You know what I'm saying? So I told them what we was bringing to the table, who was going to tell a story, how they was going to tell a story. You know, I didn't know exactly what they were going to say, but I knew Tim grew up with Puff, so he can get the childhood thing. So I'm going and telling him the whole angle in which I would like for this to go. You know what I'm saying? What we was bringing to the table. I didn't know how they was going to do it, but I was saying, this is what we're going to bring to the table. Tim could start off with the childhood part of it because they grew up together. That's Tim Dog, Tim Patterson. Also, you know, he was the one who was working at Uptown. He was executive over there of A&R and all that other stuff. He went to Island Records. He used to work with over there at Arista, the whole 9 yards. Tim is the one who had the Lost Boys. If you remember the Lost Boys, you know what I'm saying? Tim was the manager of them. That was his group and everything like that. So Tim had a lot of inside and a lot of stuff to do with Puff. I had a lot of other people I could have brought to the table too. Eddie F, who taught Puff how to work the board and everything like that. Just Eddie F, Heavy D, and the boys DJ. I was gonna try to get Eddie and some other people like that. But it fell through because the lady was telling me what somebody else didn't give me or what somebody else didn't pay me, and she was being disrespectful, you know.
But now Gene says money was not the only reason he was excluded. He claims the documentary removed evidence that could have reshaped how people understand the entire story. One key example is the so-called East Coast versus West Coast war. According to Gene, that narrative is false. Artists from both sides were still traveling, collaborating, and showing respect. The real conflict, he says, was never regional. It was a power struggle between two record labels, Bad Boy and Death Row. At the center of that fight, Gene claims, were Diddy and Suge Knight.
So you have some people that say that Tupac, he was the one behind the beef between Death Row and Bad Boy. And you got some people that say that, you know, the beef between Death Row and Bad Boy started when Big J got killed. But from your point of view, when did the tension and beef start between Death Row and Bad Boy?
All the tension started between Puff and Suge Knight. You understand? All the tension came from Puff and Suge Knight. Suge wanted Puff to have Big them do a show. Puff wanted to get paid for Big doing the show. But Suge had did a whole lot of shit, free shit for Puff at one time. Because when Puff used to come out to California, before he could afford security, before he could afford it, Suge used to look out for the cat. You understand what I'm saying? So now it became they bullshit. Then when Suge bought Misa out there, you understand? When Suge bought Misa out there and talk about what the East Coast won't take care of, the West Coast will, then Jake, you know, Jake being killed by Jason, you understand? And they making that bullshit up like Bad Boy had something to do with it. All that shit was over women. And niggas being emotional like women. That's what it was all about. It was over women, Jake disrespecting Jason girl, you understand, wife? Suge disrespecting Misa, Puff's baby mama, and them niggas being emotional like women. A lot of niggas is behind bars based on their emotions. And them niggas is right where they at because of their emotions. People have lost their lives over the way a nigga felt. So, that's what the East Coast, West Coast shit started off.
Gene says the documentary also skipped the truth about bodyguard Jake Robble's death. He claims Mark Curry knows who was responsible and insists it was not the person most people blame. Gene says the man was a Jamaican from the Bronx, later killed by police at a club called Magic City, and that detail was ignored. More shocking, Gene says Death Row tried to make peace by setting a meeting to calm tensions between Tupac, Biggie, Bad Boy, and Death Row. But according to him, Diddy refused to attend and would not send anyone either.
It was Bad Boy and it was Death Row. It was no East Coast and no West Coast. West Coast dudes were still coming out on the East Coast getting love. East Coast niggas was still going out on the West Coast getting love. It was Bad Boy versus Death Row. And that's what it was, bro. And it was because of the two CEOs. But Suge tried to straighten it out. I gotta get at the Suge. The Death Row East Coast, the Death Row East was going to bring in Eric B. It was going to bring in Big D. And those brothers was from the East Coast. So now, they was looking for a representative to come to the meeting from Bad Boy, so they could straighten out the shit between Pac and Big and Death Row and Bad Boy. And Puff is the one who refused. Puff is the one to refuse to send a representative or either come himself. And got mad at Zip and them because they were in the Mirage on 57th Street partying with Suge Knight. Got mad at them. And Zip hung up the phone on him. Behind.
Gene believes this was a turning point and that the violence could have been stopped, but was not. He then reveals what he calls the most explosive claim. Gene says Diddy knew Tupac would be hurt at Quad Studios and did nothing to prevent it. The documentary mentions the 1994 Quad Studios shooting, but leaves out a crucial detail. According to Gene, on that same day, Diddy, Andre Harrell, and Jimmy Henchman were together inside Jimmy Henchman's office. Biggie and his crew had no idea Diddy was there at all during that tense moment unfolding.
You know what I'm saying? They talked about the Quad Studio shit, but they didn't mention the fact, and they left it out, that Big and C's did not know that Puff and Andre Harrell was in Jimmy Henchman's office the day Pac got killed. I mean, the day Pac got shot at Quad Studio. Let me repeat that again so it don't get mixed up in the whole thing. They did not mention that Andre Harrell and Puff Daddy and Jimmy Henchman were all in the office together. Puff was on the office because he was trying to spy on Big and them, because Big was writing the Junior Mafia stuff and Puff had his publishing. I told this to a couple of people before. I said it before, and you got people that's running with it like they knew the story in the whole 9 yards. You understand? They'll lie and you ask them, how do you know that? Who told you? They couldn't even tell you that. They'll tell you some lie, they did some kind of investigation, but it didn't happen like that. You understand? Puff was there to spy on Big because he had owned Big Publishing. And Big had turned around, and the same people who helped Puff get Big Publishing told Big to turn and put Tatiana or put somebody else's name on his publishing, or give it to Lil C's or whoever, this, that, and the third that he wrote for, so he can get the money from it.
Gene claims while Diddy President Jimmy Henchman said Tupac would be taught lesson over money he owed, and Tupac came to studio to record a song to work it off.
Him being there to spy on Big, Jimmy Henchman told him that they finna teach Pac a lesson, because Pac had owed him some money. So that's why he was up in the studio and was coming to the studio. Pac owed him some money. He was going to work it off and get some money from doing a song with Lil Sean. And that's what that was about. But Pac was talking greasy to Jimmy Henchman, and Jimmy Henchman wasn't the type of dude that you talk greasy to, allegedly. Unless you're 50 Cent.
So Diddy knew what was going to happen to Pac.
He knew Pac was about to deal with, yeah. He was there to see it. He was there to see it. He wasn't only there to see Big and them. When Jimmy Henchman told him that, he was there to see what's going to happen to Pac.
Gene insists Diddy knew exactly what was coming for Tupac and was present to witness it unfold. He says Diddy was not just there for Biggie, but to see what would happen to Pac after Jimmy Henchman spoke. That detail Gene claims was completely removed from the documentary. He also believes Keith D, the alleged killer, will likely walk free. More troubling, Gene warns some people may want him silenced, and that jail might be the safest place for him.
D out of jail. They was trying to get Keith D out of jail to unalive him, or have something to do with him being unalive. That's probably the safest place for him to be, to a certain degree, because it definitely can happen there, depending on where you's being housed at, what ward, and the whole 9 yards. But if something happened to Kiffy D, LA, the Vegas Police Department would be like, yo, our job, we was trying to do our job. We had to kill it for Tupac. We was gonna convict him, but he came up dead. No, it's a cop-out. They have no, what you call that? They have no evidence. They have no evidence to prove that Keefe D had anything to do with the death of Tupac Shakur.
I don't know, man. I mean, we all seen that video of him crying, man. It looked like he losing hope.
He know that he's in a position and he's in a situation that he was told to make up some lies. He was thought that Vegas would never be the ones who come after them. He made up some lies for cops in California. That's a proven fact. That's a proven fact. FBI agents came out and said he made up lies and he was told a script, given a script and adhered to the script that was given to him. And he said what he was said to get out of another drug charge that could have landed him life in prison.
As for how the case may end, Gene believes several people should be held accountable. He says anyone who fed false information to police must face consequences. He even suggests Keefe D could sue the Las Vegas Police Department if the charges collapse. In his view, if a judge reviews the evidence, honestly, the case may not survive. Gene also highlighted truths the documentary ignored, especially surrounding the death of a bodyguard called Wolf. According to Gene, the long-told story is inaccurate, and he believes Diddy played a role.
At the documentary, Kirk Burroughs, he did confirm that Big, he didn't want to go to LA, and they was actually getting warnings not to go to LA. But, you know, Diddy, he wanted to go, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, we must have had warnings, man. I didn't know. I knew that we shouldn't be out there in the first place, but it's crazy. Check this out. Wolf had already told, Anthony Wolf Jones had already told them, if you're not taking two tour buses of my niggas from the Valley, that's Co-op City in the Bronx, the Valley in the Bronx. If you're not taking these 2 tour buses of my niggas out there, I'm not going. Had told Puff them, had told Kirk Burroughs. You understand? I went down there and Kirk Burroughs called me up. He's like, yo, Gene, you and Wolf, I got y'all tickets to LA. I said, all right, cool. So I go down there and I pick up the tickets to LA. I got Wolf ticket. So I'm calling Wolf up. I say, yo, Wolf, I got your ticket to go to LA. And Wolf said, I ain't going. I said, what you mean you ain't going? He said, yo, Gene, I ain't gonna tell you how I'm making I ain't gonna tell you how to make your money, but I'm gonna let you know this. I told Puff them if they wasn't gonna take 2 tour buses of my niggas out there with us, I'm not going. Wolf is the head of all the functions that has to do with Puff dealing with security.
Gene recalls arranging plane tickets for himself and Wolf, but when he called to confirm, Wolf refused to travel. Wolf told Gene he had already warned Diddy he would not risk his life without proper protection. He believed California was extremely dangerous at that time and trusted his instincts. Gene says Wolf was not avoiding California because of Big Jake's death. He stayed away because he genuinely believed going there could cost him his life, and he chose survival over loyalty.
Anywhere that had to do with California. And it wasn't because of the Jake situation. It was that he wanted to be safe, and the only way he felt safe if he was going out there with the dudes from his clique. And that was the Valley Mob. That's the only way. Wolf ended up losing his life behind Puff and his bullshit. And people they didn't even put that in the documentary. Wolf ended up losing his life behind Puff and his bullshit. And that bullshit was with BMF.
That's a big segment in my book that I wrote that whole shit. I wrote a whole big situation in my book regarding that, Mighty. And I know you're doing this. I want to say that right there because I was there the night that Meech had promised Puff, you know what I'm saying? He ain't had to worry about Suge Knight. He ain't had to worry about nobody from this point on. And telling Puff some shit like that made him think that he could talk to Wolf any kind of way. Because if anybody knew, BMF was powerful back then. They had dudes from everywhere. And Meech telling him he ain't have to worry about nobody no more, it made Puff think that he could tell Wolf that he didn't need Wolf no more. And one thing led to the next.
There's debate over whether the documentary was a personal hit by 50 Cent, but that's misleading. The project was underway before he got involved. He didn't direct or write it. His role was simply helping sell it, which he executed perfectly. Attaching his name ensured maximum attention, but he wasn't controlling the story or production.